Fantastic. Daniel, welcome.
Thank you, Ben.
Joined by Daniel Zagales, Senior Vice President of Data Platforms at 66 Degrees. Daniel, if you can take a moment to introduce yourself and share a little bit about your background and current focus.
Yeah. My name is Daniel Zagales. I have been in the data space for the last 15 years, helping our customers really evolve the way they look at using their data. So how they use analytics, how they use their data platform, how they enable those things to get to agentic AI.
Fantastic. Daniel, I was thinking, a couple of years ago as we looked at our business, your area of the business was pretty steady Eddie. It was pretty stable, and I was having a conversation, with a mentor of mine, and he was saying, well, gosh, wouldn't it be great if you could be an AI and a data business? Fast forward, AI was growing really robustly at that point. A lot of POCs, a lot of people trying different pieces. It was a little kind of in early stages of Gen AI. Fast forward 2 years, and your business has been on fire. It has been just such tailwinds, and it's just remarkable growth. Walk me through what's happened over the past couple of years.
Yeah, so when the generative AI workloads started coming to bear, our initial thought was, oh, this makes sense. Data will just be pulled through as part of this because you need strong data to have good AI. And what we ended up finding was a lot of our customers were sticking to really small POCs, doing limited scope pilots, and it really didn't take advantage of enterprise data as a whole. And so what we did was start investing into the marketing behind making sure people knew, right, that data is key to all the agentic workloads that are to come. And so getting your data house in order is going to become a critical path. And so really, as our customers started exiting those phases of, hey, we've done our POCs and this makes sense for our business, we see the value, they turned to go start rolling these pilots and POCs into production workloads, and they couldn't. Their data wasn't there and wasn't ready to support them. There wasn't good quality trust in that data, and really it stopped them from being able to have that motion. And we'd been beating that drum so loudly that the market turned to us as experts in this space, because we are, and we've been doing this for so long. We knew that this would be coming to bear. And so we were ready. We also, in that same time, invested in tools like Paradigm to help our customers get away from their legacy platforms that they had, or even their platforms that they lifted and shifted in the cloud, and allow them to move into having a data-ready ecosystem for AI.
It's fantastic. So what I'm hearing you say is that the early innings of AI exposed to say, hey, this solution isn't working as we thought, and then especially as we thought to scale AI, to move from the POC to more of a production system or into more of an enterprise system, is that we needed cleaner, better, more available data so that AI solution could work. Do you think we're in the early innings of that transition, or as you look at your clients and your engagements that you're working on, are people just starting to unlock their data, or are we at the end stages of that?
I think depending on where you are in the ecosystem, some people are really far ahead and they already had their data ready. They're moving on to the advanced AI use cases. Although we have customers who are very large data shops, and that really is their business of being data shops. Mm-hmm. And they're still in very early innings of that data transformation to become AI ready. If your data is not good, it doesn't matter how many analysts you have, right? We have a customer who, they have very fickle data pipelines to serve up data to their analysts. And what that leads to is erosion in the trust of that data. And so what we're going to be doing for them is building these robust data pipelines that make sure that their analysts, their end users, their business users have really strong trust in their data because it's resilient. There's data quality tests that are published, that they can see and understand that the data is good, mm-hmm. and be able to trust that going forward, anytime they want to innovate and try out new agentic workloads, the data is there for them. And they know that new data that comes on board is going to be there for them, and of quality and reliability.
And I would imagine is not only if an analyst is your end user of data, But if that data is driving an agent that's interacting with your customer, or driving an agent that's autonomously working, or with a human in the loop working on a business process, even more so do you want that data to be accurate.
Exactly. So one of the things I've been saying to folks lately is you can't put a Ferrari engine on a go-kart, right? It just doesn't work. And so when we think about that with AI and data, you can't have this really cool AI tool and these AI platforms that's on bad data. You might go really fast, but you can go really fast into a wall, especially in use cases where those things are customer and end user facing that impact your business. And so, having that be front and center for our customers is really important to understand that good data is really part of the whole AI solution.
You have to build out the body of that Ferrari. Daniel, you lead a large global team at this point, in data platforms, and it's been one of the fastest growth areas of our business. But we've also needed to begin to build and think about the consultancy of the future, where we're leveraging AI more, and we're teaching our people to leverage AI a little more. Can you talk to me a little bit and discuss how you're leveraging AI and implementing AI and how your teams are using it?
Yeah, so we have invested in Paradigm, which is a suite of AI tools to assist our developers in migrations, in development of data platforms. So that's really how we are getting our customers to realize a shorter time to value for their investments in these products. And so as we look at the early waves of migrations, right, they're very much so lift and shift, like I mentioned. And so now that we need to move out of that, it's a lot of technical debt that's piled up and compounded year over year over year. And so it's almost paralyzing for our customers to sit there and look at that and try to say, how do I move this? And so that's where the Paradigm agents come in. And so they allow us to plan out a solution to say, these are all the dependencies. Here's what you have, how they connect, and really create a robust plan to decompose that warehouse into meaningful chunks of work. So we can start delivering, again, with an agentic approach very quickly to our customers and have units of work just turned over and activated into their environment, and not just have one big bang, but really a rollout of agentic delivered tools and dashboards and reports and data sets, all for our customers to have. And so the other end of that too is under Paradigm, we've enabled our technologists to really think about the way they deliver differently as well. Being an agentic team doesn't mean that you've just procured a license to an agentic tool, right? That's step one maybe. So what we've done in the last year is really focus on what our purpose is for our engineers and our architects. And their purpose is to deliver quality data platforms for our customers, right? That enable agentic AI, that enable strong analytics. And as we worked through that, we decoupled our whole delivery workflow of what it looks like to give that to our customers. And we broke that into discrete tasks that we can execute on, and have built agents all along that work chain of delivering to our customers. So what it looks like now is that we can walk in day zero to a customer and start rapidly deploying agents to really understand the use cases, decompose requirements, build out the user stories, build out the technical requirements for then our engineering team to really run with that and deliver rapidly. Mm-hmm. We had a customer recently who had a ERP migration that did not go well. They ended up having to roll back and consolidate to a different platform. Mm. But we had already been enabled at that point to start building out their new warehouse. And when the platform shifted, normally what we would come across is a very long delay, because we would have to rebuild from scratch everything that we had done for the old platform. And so this team was already agentic enabled. And so they had rapidly produced the initial set of assets. And using those same agentic tools, we're able to rapidly pivot to the new platform. And what that allowed our customer to do is get back on track to their timeline. A failed ERP migration is a huge disruption. So to be able to come back and say, we can bring you back in, is a huge win for us.
That's That's a really great story. I was thinking, could you unpack for me a little bit, what an enterprise data warehouse, creation or migrating into a modern enterprise data warehouse would have looked like 4 or 5 years ago, and what it looks like today?
Yeah.
In terms of, I would say, timing, approach, but also you hit on, we're delivering now with these agentic teams. How does that, what is the difference 3 to 5 years ago and then today?
Yeah, so I'd say 3 to 5 years ago, when we were looking at these migrations, it was traditionally from on-prem to the cloud. Things like Teradata and Netezza, and we'd have to sit there and go through code that was stored on the database. There wasn't many GitHub repositories of SQL code. Everybody stored it local on the database. And so we'd have to do that analysis, run those queries to pull data out, try to understand and manually map. We were using knowledge graphs at that time to kind of map the relationships between objects, but a very manual process just to be able to get to the state of, okay, I understand what you have, where it comes from, and how we can break it apart. That may have looked like 2 or 3 months in and of itself. And then we would get to now we have 1,200 jobs to convert and deploy, and we're typically going to do it in a lift and shift pattern because that is what is fastest. And we may take a day, 2 days to convert one.
Okay.
When you have 1,000, that adds up very quickly.
Just 1,000 days, right?
Yeah, and it becomes more of a body problem than an innovation problem. And then there's the effort of testing everything.
So this could be a 2 to 3 year project.
Yeah, very much so. And so, when we look at that today, we can run those assessments in days, not months. We can understand that breakdown of dependencies in hours. We can move into building immediately. And our workflows to convert into a modern approach and not a lift and shift, right? Convert to modern, deploy, test, and promote to production becomes a much tighter cycle. So from that 2 to 3 years, in that scenario that I just mentioned about our previous customer, that first initial workload to start was probably 2 months of going through very rapidly and having all the plumbing set, all the data warehouse set, and just waiting for data, to then having to repivot and get back into it in less than a month. So 4 months total-ish to do a whole deployment of a data warehouse.
So you're moving from 2 years to half a year, to 4 to 6
and
months.
even in that scenario, that was with a change of source midway through. And so it's much different now than it is today, or was then. I remember our first large migration project. There was things around every corner that, nobody told us about this random database all the way over here that we needed to bring in, and that would add risk, right? And so it also helps us de-risk these timelines. So not just condense, but allow us to make sure that we've got everything, that there isn't a last minute surprise, even if the timeline's 4 months, right? A last minute surprise in those scenarios could delay it another 2, all right? And so allowing us to have a really de-risked, tightly focused project that we can deliver in a short amount of time.
That's great, and I'm assuming that's because you're having people that are delivering, but also the agents along with them. Is that fair? That's your agentic team?
100%. It's that agentic enabled team using the paradigm agents, working through that process, and it's something that's allowed us to have that growth as a team, to be able to go through and not just do one large project in 2 or 3 years, but do many large projects in 1 year.
That's great. Let me ask you. You talked about we started off by talking about preparing for AI, and catching up to make sure that your data state is transformed and modern. How would you advise a CIO or a business that their data isn't prepared?
Yeah.
But the looming risk of transforming into an agentic enterprise is right in front of their face, and hey, they're talking to their board, or they're talking to their ownership, and they're saying, hey, you have to transform. How would you advise that CIO?
Yeah, so when I think about people in those roles, they're trying to understand what it means for them, right, as a business to support AI, to be able to do all these things. And going back to our earlier conversation, you have to have really strong data to be able to do that. And so if you're not planning for that, first start there. Start planning for where you're going to go. Talk to your hyperscaler partners like Google, who can really come to the table and help you understand what the platform looks like, what run rate looks like, and start modeling out the cost of what you would need to account for in going to one of these platforms. Bringing a strong consultant like us that can then help you understand what the migration looks like. Not just the, hey, you're going to have everything running in Google, but what it means for your teams, what it means for them from a UAT perspective, from a change management perspective, understand a timeline, and get rolling as soon as possible. Because I think that time for doing the POCs is pretty much over. Everybody's moved on. There's new products coming to bear every day. They're hyper-focused on disrupting industry. And I think about that, and I think about our customers, and they need to be prepared and ready for being the ones who disrupt and not being disrupted.
Yeah, and so what I hear you saying is don't delay. Start now. And I also, to pull a thread from a prior comment you made is there's risk of just pulling in a product that can transform or migrate or modernize your data. Pull in an expert that helps you leverage that product. One thing I want to hit on is we have a very close partnership with Google, and Google is a leader in data and AI solutions. Could you talk a little bit about Google's trajectory and approach and how it's been to partner with Google?
Yeah. So we started having our first conversations with Google back in 2016, and about a partnership and what that would look like. And they were the smallest player in the room, I think, at that point in time. Azure had already started growing their business. AWS was already the 600-pound gorilla in the room. And they started talking to us about their data products. They had Data Proc. BigQuery was fairly new in the market. And it really was interesting, but not exciting. And then they showed us their roadmap. And it was a story we've been telling our customers about innovation, about what they needed to do in order to innovate and bring not just tools to bear, but concepts to bear within their organization. Things like data governance, things like ensuring data quality, things like having a strong analytics tool with a semantic layer on top of it. And so we looked at that roadmap, and it was so aligned with what we preach and what we are at our core from the data and analytics side that I was floored. There's somebody who is going to market talking the same way we do and having these same concepts about data and AI, and they are the leader in data and AI across the world. And so it was very exciting then. Today, I sit and look at what they've accomplished, what tools that they have brought to bear, the innovation that they continue to bring, even as others enter the market. They are still on the leading edge. And I look at their roadmap, and again, I'm in awe and I'm floored. It's continued progress towards people being able to change their business. Not just, hey, here's a shiny new tool, but here's how that tool permeates throughout your whole environment, touches each one of your end users within your organization, and enables them to have access to data that changes the way they do business, that gives them valuable insights. And it's no longer we have citizen data scientists. We have fully enabled team members now who can act in a really powerful way that they've not been able to do before. And the roadmap continues to bear that out every step of the way.
Yeah, and Daniel, the 2 points I'd hit on or pull out there is Google has done a really great job of enabling engineers and people and their users of becoming more than they are, right? Extending themselves, and that's true with their data tools. That's true with their AI tools. But what I also love hearing you say is that, I think what Google's done a really good job of is moving, expanding outside of the CIO suite. Is that historically, data and cloud problems used to be the CIO's problems. Today, and think about how many different stakeholders we're working with on a day-to-day basis. It's not just the CIO anymore. It's the data for this hospital system, the data for this logistics firm is impacting how they're doing business. And Google's roadmap, I think historically and in the future, allows us to operate and them to operate in every corner of an enterprise.
That's very true.
Daniel, the last thing I'd love to ask you is, if you have a big team, and it's a dynamic world out there with technology, as we're building a consultancy of the future, and we're delivering with agentic teams. If you had to give advice to a member of your team that was just starting off in their career as a consultant and a data engineer, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, the technology space over the last 15 years has seen different waves of disruption, right? When we started, it was SQL Server and SIS, very standard database technologies, right? And then we moved into the columnar data stores, and then we moved into big data, and that was all the rage at that point in time. And then we had our first wave of cloud databases like Redshift, and then the next wave with the Snowflakes and the BigQueries and Databricks. And the timeline between each has continued to compress as innovation continues to drive forward. And so what I think it's really important, and what I tell my team on a regular basis, is understand the basic principles. Understand what it means to deliver a good quality data product, all the things that go into it. And now understand that these tools are here, these agentic tools and frameworks that you need to start leveraging, because the next thing is going to come along in a much quicker timeline and destabilize all that. And we'll have another wave. And so as long as you understand the core principles, the agentic tools that we have allow us to apply that knowledge without having to learn the underlying technology to the extent that we used to, right? If I know SQL, right, and tomorrow SQL goes away and there's a brand new language, I know the basis of how I get data. What makes a good query? How do I optimize it? All those things become really relevant in terms of engaging with an AI model and the things that you ask to it to produce. And that becomes what's more important. So understanding how to use the agents, have the base knowledge of the domain, and then be creative. I feel like the agentic tools that we have are so based on your ability to understand and work around a solution that it itself doesn't know. And so you can really shape really creative solutions that are amazing.
That's great advice. Daniel, thank you for joining me.
Thanks so much, Ben.
Great conversation.